So let's go ahead and get started with today's webinar. You're listening to part one of a two-part series on cybersecurity. My name is Lon Broske. I'm a certified financial planner with Pines Wealth Management in St. Louis. I'm also a managing partner with Pines Wealth Management. And the goal of doing these webinars is very simple. We want to help educate our clients with topics that are top of mind with our clients and particularly relevant. And it doesn't really get any bigger than cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is one of those topics that has become relevant in the last 14 years or so. And why do I specifically use 14 years? Well, because this June is a very important anniversary. Every June is really. But this June will be the 14th year since the iPhone was invented. And the iPhone, when it was invented, was essentially the beginning of cybersecurity because it put the power of a computer in the palm of your hand. 14 years ago, that changed the world. Before then, the only people who really needed to know about cybersecurity were big businesses. Well, the iPhone changed that. Now we all need to be aware of cybersecurity. It's become such a big topic for us. We've all heard or maybe perhaps even experienced a cybersecurity event. Maybe you've had your identity stolen. Maybe you've had your accounts hacked. I know for me personally, I've had a couple of events that's happened to me cybersecurity wise that certainly has brought it to my attention. But if you think about that device that you now hold in your hand, right? And we all have it. We all have a smartphone. When it was first introduced 14 years ago, you didn't see them around very much, but now you see them everywhere. Just seems like we can't go anywhere without that device in the palm of our hands. And the scary thing is that device that you're now holding in your hand today has 1,000,000 times more power than what it took in 1968 for NASA to put man on the moon. That's how powerful of a device that is. And as a result, cybersecurity has become more important to us. And one of the really areas that we should be better educated on, because there's not a whole lot of education on cybersecurity. And of course, that's what we're here today. But like it or not, somewhere right now, maybe in your backyard, maybe a neighbor, maybe somebody on the East Coast, maybe somebody in the United States, maybe somebody halfway around the world, somebody right now has obtained your username and your password to your email accounts. Someone has your social security number. Someone has tried or maybe have already opened a credit card account in your name. Maybe they're working on trying to drain your bank accounts. Perhaps maybe some of you have already experienced that. Or they're working on taking your computer and holding it for ransom through phishing or through ransomware or malware. But either way, this is an important subject that we all need to talk about. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not only us, but it's corporations. Corporations have had to worry about cybersecurity long before we did. We just had it the last 14 years. But cybersecurity really has been dealing with since the mid-'80s, really since when the computers really started to gain traction within the business world. And we've already seen this over the last couple of years. Marriott had 500 million of their guests. Their data was breached. Equifax had 143 million Americans have their data breached, and Yahoo recently had 3 billion Yahoo accounts compromised. That happened to me. Some of you have already heard this story. Some of you may have not, but my own Yahoo account was breached. And here's my personal story. I was in a meeting with a client, and many of you who have been in our offices, specifically my office, know that I have a window that outlooks the hallway. So I can see out in the hallway. And I'm in a meeting with a client, and off in my peripheral vision, I can see my assistant, Lisa, going back and forth, pacing in the hall outside my window. Okay, something's up. Something's going on with Lisa. Maybe an emergency. I don't know. But I excused myself from the meeting, walked out in the hall, and Lisa's face was white. And I could tell immediately something was wrong. Okay, Lisa, what's going on? She goes, your Yahoo account has been compromised, and an email was sent to all of your clients telling them that you were stuck in Europe and that you needed money in order to get back to the United States. And immediately I lost color out of my face. The stress of the moment just hit me like a ton of bricks, just weighed on my chest, and I panicked. I finished that meeting and I immediately went to my Yahoo email account. So I logged on. First thing the hacker did is he changed my password. I could no longer get into my Yahoo email account. And oh, by the way, Yahoo does not do the best customer service in the world because there's not a 1-800 number you can call. There's not somebody up at Yahoo headquarters dying to talk to you and help you with your email account. You got to dig to find the answers. So I was finally able to recover my password or change my password and log on as me. Second thing the hacker did to me is he erased all my contacts. So I had no idea who that email sent out to. And fortunately, I had my work email that I could send an email to all my contacts, alerting them that my Yahoo account had been compromised. And the third thing the attacker did is he created an email. He or she created an email and changed the email address, my email address, by one character. And so whenever my clients tried to reply to that email, it actually replied to his new email that he had created. So they were talking to the hacker. Absolutely compromised my account and changed the way that I view email accounts. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But fortunately, none of my clients were duped by the hacker. And so we didn't have anybody giving away any vital information. So it turned out okay, but it could have been much, much worse. And the consequences of cyber attacks are real. They're real for both you and for businesses. For us, we have to worry about identity theft. We have to worry about accounts being opened up in our name. We have to worry about money being stolen from our accounts. We have to worry about maybe charges to our credit card. Companies, they have to worry about data loss. Have to worry about hackers stealing their secrets, corporate espionage, in other words. They also have to worry about loss of trust among their partners, their business partners, their most important business partners. If you break down that trust by a cyber attack, that could adversely affect your business. So not only does it affect companies, but it also affects consumers and lately also government. So everybody should be aware of cyber security and at least have some knowledge on how to reduce your electronic footprint. So let's talk about what we want to do today. We have a challenge in front of us. Whenever we talk about cybersecurity, the challenge is all about knowledge. And we see two opposite ends of the spectrum. I see one end of the spectrum that has a lot of knowledge and that has taken some good security measures to reduce their electronic footprint. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum is those that may have little knowledge, a little bit, not much, and aren't taking security precautions, has virtually no cybersecurity, has no rules in place, has nothing to protect themselves. And as a result, their electronic fingerprint is very large. Electronic footprint is very large. Okay, so maybe someone who has low knowledge and low security measures, their footprint is the size of a dinosaur, right? And we want our electronic footprint to be the size of a mouse, not a dinosaur. And that all depends upon our knowledge and how much of security measures we put in place to help us reduce our footprint. We want that footprint to be the size of a mouse. So what we're here to talk about today is a system. I'd like to see you set up a system or at least put some guardrails in place to help guide you in your cybersecurity, to make yourself more secure. And there's 3 essential steps that we can take. Step number 1 is we need to discover our cybersecurity score. We need to know exactly where we stand right now before we even determine what measures we need to take with our cybersecurity. We need to take a self-evaluation test, in other words. And we're going to take a quiz here in just a moment with the attachment that was sent to you, or not sent to you, but is on the webinar. We're going to open that in just a minute. Step number 2 is we're going to learn some cybersecurity rules that you may not have had in place, but we're going to put some in place. And again, those cybersecurity rules are guardrails, going to keep us from stepping out of our lane, which would expose us to further security actions. And then Step number 3, which is really the most important step out of all the steps we're going to take today, is let's make a commitment to take action, to change your cybersecurity level. But let's go back to step 1. Okay, let's start at step 1. Again, this is we're going to self-scout here. We're going to do a self-evaluation, and I want you to, in the upper right-hand corner of your webinar screen, there is a document there, and the document is called Savvy Cybersecurity. It's a quick reference guide. So if you can, I want you to open that guide, and in section A, which is on the first page, the very first section you look at, there is a cybersecurity quiz. And this quiz consists of 10 questions. Now, we're not being competitive here, okay? You're not measuring it against your neighbor, okay, your family, your friends. All you're doing is you're just measuring it with yourself. Again, it's a self-assessment. You're going to look at these 10 questions, and they're yes or no answers, not complicated. So what I want you to do, take a minute or so and go through these questions. And if you answer yes to any of these questions, give yourself 5 points. And at the end of these 10 questions, add up your score. And then we'll talk about the results. But I'm going to give you 30 seconds or so to go through each question, to read through it, and then answer yes or no, and then total up your points. Again, not going to be long, just 30 seconds or so. It's not a hard quiz. And even if you can't open up that document, you can see what's on your screen. Give yourself, again, score yourself based upon what's on the screen. If you're having trouble opening up the document, you can do that as well. Okay, so we should have our score. Again, these are easy questions. This quiz is not hard. It's not like the ones that you took in chemistry class in high school, but you add up the score, and there is a rating that you can look at based upon your score. So if you scored between a 0 and a 20, you didn't score very high. So your vulnerabilities, your cybersecurity, that the steps that you've taken to secure your data, to secure your accounts, isn't very good. There's lots of room for improvement. You have a lot of holes in your cybersecurity plan. Your vulnerabilities are many. If you scored between a 20 and 35, you're doing okay. You've taken some appropriate steps, but maybe today we can show you 1 or 2 more additional steps that you can take to raise that score even further. And if you scored above a 35, then your cybersecurity knowledge is pretty good. But you may be able to polish some things up a little bit later, depending upon some areas that we talk about that you may not be aware of or that you can improve on. So just because you got a good score and your cybersecurity is okay, doesn't mean you can't improve on what you're doing, and you may be able to polish that up a little bit with what we're going to talk about today. So good idea to, again, establish fundamentally where you are at. So what do we want to do? We absolutely want to establish some rules. And these rules are going to be guidelines, and we'll talk about each one of these rules in a moment. But first of all, I want to step back and talk about the right mindsets. The right mindsets that we like to see you have with your cybersecurity is really, it's 3 essential mindsets. Number 1 is secrecy. Okay, keeping your documents secure, those that you download and those that you send. We here at our firm use a system called SMARSH. That's a way where we send documents that has sensitive information to our clients securely, where the client has to log on to a website in order to achieve their documents. And it's a safe, secure way to send secure documents via email. Omniscience. Omniscience basically is the state of knowing everything. We're going to talk about that. There is definitely a strategy that you can take in order to enhance your omniscience and reduce the potential for a cyber attack. And then finally, mindfulness. We want to make sure that we are always constantly aware of things that are surrounding us and being mindful of the actions that we take, because they could have some important ramifications that we don't want to see. So secrecy, omniscience, and mindfulness. So let's talk about secrecy first and foremost. Again, this is probably the easiest mindset to take or to have. And step number 1 in the secrecy mindset is the 2-step verification process. Now, a lot of financial websites have gotten better with this two-step verification, or they've added this two-step verification process on their website within the last couple of years. And what is that? That simply is a second step needed to identify yourself. So we know that we have username and password, right? Everybody has the username and password to a financial account. But this second step verification is that the financial institution, wherever you're trying to log into, will send you a code that you have to put in order to access your data. So it's, again, another special layer of security, which gives you that additional confidence to know that your data is protected. Because the reason why this two-step verification works so well is because it requires two separate things. Okay, the first thing is you got to know your password and your username, which we all do. The second thing is you got to have your phone in your hand for that temporary code. And a lot of websites now are going to the Google Authenticator app, which you can download from any smartphone, or the Microsoft Authenticator. Either way, they work the same way. And what that does is the Authenticator generates that passcode, and that passcode's only good for 30 seconds to a minute. You have to input that code in addition to your username and password before you can access your data. That way, again, that's another layer of security. So if you have your smartphone with you and you get a text giving you a code and you didn't request that code, you know something's up. Somebody's trying to access your data. And so you need to immediately go in there and change your password. Or if you get a password reset request, once again, something's up. You need to go in and you need to change that password because someone's trying to access your account. So that two-step verification, if you haven't added it yet, consider it and add it if it's available to you. And then we have it for our clients in accessing their financial plan. Another idea is consider a password manager. I know I personally have over 200 passwords to various different websites that I need to access data that needs to be secured. So password manager helps. Now, these are just some various different password programs that we've seen clients use. I personally use RoboForm. And the good thing about these password programs is that they will create passwords for you. Because the last thing that we want to do, and we'll talk about this in a minute, the last thing that we want to do is create a password that we use universally. We want to create a password for each website or each secure site that we want to access our data at. And we want to create a unique password for that website. And that's where these password managers help you, because it remembers your data for you, stores it on a secure server. And oh, by the way, if you do decide to use one of these password managers, none of these software companies has a record of your passwords. They can't access your passwords. Only you can access your passwords. You're just renting space on their server. So something to consider as a password manager. But here's an important rule that I don't see a whole lot of people taking advantage of, and they really should, is to create an email address only for your financial accounts that nobody else has. I know I have multiple email accounts, and we're starting to see that more and more with clients. There's multiple email accounts. Sometimes there's just a work account, and sometimes there's a personal account. Well, I would take that a step further in your cybersecurity rule. I would create just a separate email for your financial accounts, for your most sensitive accounts, your bank account, your credit card account, maybe even your Social Security. When you log on to Social Security to get your estimates. Very important, do not use anything in your email address that is associated with you, first name, last name, initials, or any identifying information that someone might be able to grab. And we'll talk about that story here in just a minute on grabbing identification that's out there in cyberspace. And finally, we want that password to be strong and unique. That's where that password program can help you, because they can generate massively complicated passwords. And any characters you want, any number of characters that you want to create your password, 10 characters, 15 characters, 20 characters, small case, uppercase, special symbol, numbers, whatever. These password programs can help you create those and remember them for you. But I want to tell you a story about a guy by the name of Herbert Thompson. And Herbert Thompson, I've heard him a couple of times. He's a professor and he's a cybersecurity expert. And he tells a story of he had a bet with one of his friends, and they were out having coffee, and they were having a discussion about cybersecurity. And Mr. Thompson was telling his friend that, cybersecurity or hacking, being able to hack your data is not as difficult as you would think. Even the most mundane hacker can take a laptop and access your data. And she's like, well, there's no way. I mean, you have to have all these computers and you have to be really smart. And he's like, I bet I can access your bank account information within 15 minutes. She said, okay, you're on. So with that, he got to work. First thing he did, went to Google, Googled her name. Up came her blog, and interestingly enough, a resume from college. And he started there. So he knew that she had graduated from college. You can tell that from her blog and also from her resume. So he used her college email address. He started there. And he did a forgot password, and it asked a security question. And what did he do? Well, he was able to go back to her blog, reference her blog, and find the answer to the personal question that was asked in order to reset her password for her college email address, and he was able to reset it. Now, when he reset it, boom, now he's into her college email account. From there, he goes into her personal email account, forgets the password. What does he do? Pushes that forget password link to her college email address, which he has full access to. Now he resets her password for her personal account. And then he moves on from there to her financial accounts, because he knew that her personal account was linked to her financial accounts. Password reset for her financial accounts, sends it to his personal account. He's got that. Boom. Now he's in her bank account, and he's looking at her bank account within 15 minutes. That's how simple it is. We do not have safeguards in place. That's how easy a hacker can get into your financial accounts. That's why I think this rule is probably one of the more important rules, is to make sure that we establish an email address specifically only to financial accounts and make that password strong and difficult. 15 letters. 20 letters, I don't care. Just make it difficult. Do not use the same password across all your key websites. Omniscience, awareness, financial awareness. Well, that comes with freezing your credit. Not a lot of people that we've spoken to about their cybersecurity know about freezing your credit. It's now easier than what it's ever been before. Before, you had to write a letter and send it off via snail mail. We all know how that worked over the last 6 months with the pandemic, right? The U.S. Postal Service has slowed to a crawl with their mail. We had to write a letter to all the various credit agencies requesting that your credit be frozen. So when you freeze your credit with Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian, no one can open up an account on your behalf. That is being consciously aware of what's happening from a 30,000-foot viewpoint. Because when you lock your credit, no one can open up that account. I got a personal story here. I received a letter from Chase Bank the other day saying, sorry, Mr. Broske, we cannot open up your account. We couldn't verify your identity. Couldn't open up an account for you. I never filled out any paperwork with Chase. I never asked them to open up an account. That's because my credit was locked. And now Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, I said earlier, they made you write a letter. Well, now they've got apps right on your phone that you can download to where you can lock your credit with a touch of a button. And if you go to apply for credit somewhere, you can touch of a button and unlock it. That way you're in control 100% of the time. And you can freeze and unfreeze that credit as you see fit. And another thing here that gets overlooked, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but your kids, especially if you have younger kids. Hackers love younger kids because they have social security numbers, and because by the time that they hack that social security number and use it to open up accounts, by the time that child gets to be of adult age, there's 13, 14 years worth of fraud that's happened. And now the child has to reverse all of that and gets to be very, very difficult. So you can also lock your kids' Social Security accounts within Equifax, TransUnion, and Experience as well, and save yourself a lot of headache. And you'll have to, now, some will require a letter, others won't, but you'll have to jump through a couple more hoops in order to freeze your children's credit. But you might want to consider doing that because hackers love to hack into kids' Social Security numbers because it's such a long time before it's ever discovered. So let's talk about mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is almost a state of Zen, okay? You want to be a Zen master here. And fighter pilots like to use an acronym for mindfulness. And they use the acronym of ODA, OODA, which stands for observation, orientation, decision, and action. Fighter pilots know this. They're always in a state of being mindful. And it almost gets to the point to where they're not even thinking about it anymore. It's just automatic. It's ingrained in them to observe, to orientate themselves to where they're at, to make a decision and act on that decision. And we want to do the exact same thing with your cybersecurity. We want to make it automatic. We want to make it so you don't even think about it. The first place that I would start would be the 10-second email rule. And the reason why I would emphasize this is because your email is the first place you're going to get hacked. How many of us have received an email from a bank? Or I know from my own experience, once again, I have my own personal story here. Personal story is that I get an email from PayPal, it seems quarterly, threatening to cut off my PayPal account and lock my account if I don't give them personal information to verify my account. Well, it's a way for that hacker to, when you answer that email or look at that email, it's a way for the hacker to install malware, or commonly called a ransomware, on your machine. And now they can take over your machine. They have complete control of it. And in order for you to give them, or in order for them to give you back control of your machine, they're going to require that you pay them. Probably in Bitcoin, I would imagine, because Bitcoin is untraceable. But good 10-second email rule here. And it's just, I want you to think of email as an acronym. And that acronym stands for examine, message, and inspect the link. So take 10 seconds out of your time and examine the message first and foremost. Because there could be phishing going on. And I'm not phishing talking about the animal fish. I'm talking about phishing as in PHISH. Phishing emails simply are emails that impersonate a legitimate company. It looks like it's coming from PayPal. It looks like it's coming from your bank. But it's only designed to steal your personal information, to get you to give them your personal information. And hackers are sending out billions of these messages each day. Now, most of them will get caught in your spam filter, but occasionally one or two will leak through. I've gotten clients that call me saying, hey, this email looks legit. It's from Bank of America. That's who I got my bank with. Should I reply back? Absolutely 100% not. If you just take the 10-second rule and look through it, you can find out whether or not that link that is within that email is real. And how you do that? You take that mouse and you simply hover over that link that's established in the email. And when you do that, a little box will pop up in a balloon and it'll tell you exactly what the link is. We'll talk more about that in a second, but I want to talk about another story here. Okay. And I said it earlier, and I don't know whether or not you caught it, is that all of us are subject to cybersecurity. We need to have cybersecurity. There's a story of John Holdren. I don't know if you know who John Holdren is, but John Holdren is the assistant to former President Obama, and he's a former director of the White House Office of Science and Technology. So you think that guy would be uber secure, and he probably is. But the hackers decided to go after his wife. And so they sent her an email. Looked like it was from John, asking for the home Xfinity phone and internet account password. because he had forgotten it and he was at work and he needed to access it. Again, she didn't think anything about it. She was in a hurry. Boom, sent it off to Mr. Holdren, or who she thought. Well, come to find out, she sent it back to the hacker. And that started a sequence of events where now his account was hacked to the point to where all of his phone calls and all of his emails were being redirected to the Free Palestine movement. And guess what? Mr. Holden, now the Holdens together join the long list of those that have been hacked. And this guy worked for President Obama, for crying out loud, in the White House of Science, in the White House Office of Science and Technology, and he was hacked because she didn't take the time to read through that. Very, very important is that phishing and using your email, that's probably going to be the first place that they're going to look, because it's the easiest to do, because they can send out massive amounts of emails and they know that people get busy. And when people get busy, they use that 10-second email rule to examine the message and examine and interpret the links. Inspect the links. So part 2 of that is, again, inspect the links like we just talked about. A lot of times in that email, there will be a link that's sent to you. Take your mouse, hover over that link, and there'll be a balloon that pops up that will tell you exactly where that link is going. And if it's not going exactly to the company that it says, there'll be maybe some numbers before the website. Oh, sure, there'll be the name of the company somewhere in there, but it won't be the actual company website. And when you hover over that link, it'll tell you exactly where you're going. Which reminds me of another story. So Jane Corbin, who's a popular British journalist, she was working on a deadline, and she tells this story in her own story of being hacked. She's working on an important deadline. She's been working on this documentary for over a year now. And she's just at the deadline, and she's very busy, and she's got a lot of things going on there. She's trying to coordinate the last little bits of a documentary. And so she's using email, and she's very busy, and she's doing multiple things at once. She's multitasking. I mean, how many of us have not done that, right? In this world of social media and having that phone connected right in our palms, multitasking has seemed to become a way of life. And we can have a whole nother workshop on learning to decompress. But anyway, that's beside the point. Get back to the Jane Corbin. So she suddenly spots an email in her Yahoo account, not thinking twice, not using that 10-second email rule, and just looking to confirm her accounts of her Yahoo account. Otherwise, her Yahoo account's going to be shut down. And she can't shut down her Yahoo account because now she's facing an important deadline. She needs her Yahoo account, so she panics. She goes ahead and clicks on the link and fills in all of her personal information. And immediately what happened? Boom, screen goes blank. She's lost her computer. She's just been phished. And now the hacker is done with her. Now what the hacker does is goes after her contacts. And more than 1,000 people in her email address book have gotten an email from her stating that she's stuck in Spain. She was just robbed and she needs money to get back to the United States. Sound familiar? Absolutely. It sounds familiar to me because that's what happened to me. I wasn't in Europe and Jane wasn't in Spain. It's kind of funny, Jane in Spain. Anyway, Jane wasn't in Spain, but yet all the email went to her 1,000 contacts. And I would bet you, she didn't say this, but I would bet you that she couldn't get into her email account. And she was locked out of her computer anyway because the hacker had ensured that she couldn't get at it. The hacker did me a favor and didn't shut my computer down, but he did really mess up my Yahoo account. But if she had just waited that other extra 10 seconds and examined that message from Yahoo a little bit more closely, she could have possibly prevented that attack and saved herself a lot of stress and embarrassment. And that's bound to come along when you have a phishing attack like that. So take that extra 10 seconds and use that acronym of email is examine the message and inspect the links. Very easy to remember. Last thing I want you to do is take some action. A plan is not any good. It's just a piece of paper. That cybersecurity quiz that you took is just a piece of paper. It's not going to do you a darn bit of good unless you take some action. And that's what we want to do here is we want to commit ourselves to taking action. And that's what this slide is really about. Hey, I'm gonna do two-factor authentication. I'm going to download that Google Authenticator. I'm going to use that with my financial website. I'm going to do that by April 15th. That's writing down and actually planning to put that into action. Maybe I'm going to establish a new email and use it only for my financial accounts. That's putting the plan into action. Lots of things that we talked about here that you can put into action today and use. Password protector. Use the email acronym. Make it part of your mindfulness to examine every email, just 10 seconds. I know you get busy in the day. We all do. But this will help you. And that's also on your quick reference guide on the back page. This same action plan commitment is in section D on that form that's included in this webinar. So be sure to look at that. We also have, as kind of an expansion of what we talked about today, we have a book available for you called Hack Proof Your Life Now. It gives you, again, expands a little bit on what we talked about. Talks about how you might it talks about these credit services. Okay. Remember LifeLock? Okay. LifeLock was advertised everywhere. Well, it comes to find out that LifeLock wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing, and they got sued for a lot of money and lost. So some of these credit protection firms don't do what they're supposed to do. And the best protection that you could ever implement is the cybersecurity rules that you implement yourself, not having someone else do it for you. And then last, but certainly not least, we have part 2 coming up where we're going to talk about your smartphone. Remember, we talked about that earlier. You have 1,000,000 times more power in the palm of your hands than what NASA had in 1968 to put man on the moon. That your smartphone has become a very important part of your identity. And we need to protect that because that's a whole nother set of rules. So we're going to talk about hack proofing your smartphone on April 1st at 1:30 p.m. So look out for that webinar, that invitation as a follow-up to this one. Go ahead and get registered for that one. That one's going to be a good one as well because this doesn't get talked about a whole lot. Your smartphone doesn't get talked about a whole lot. I've seen a lot of information about your computer, but not a whole lot of information about hack-proofing your smartphone, which is really important because that's what we use every day, all the time. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. There's one thing we appreciate here at our firm. It's the time that you give, because that's the most precious commodity you can offer someone is your time. So thank you. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got some good information out of it. If you have any questions, be sure to email us or feel free to call the office. If you'd like to make an appointment with us to do your own cybersecurity evaluation, we would certainly be happy to do that with you as well. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. And also visit our website at www.pineswealthmanagement.com. Look forward to seeing you next time, and be sure to sign up for April 1st. Thank you for your time and look forward to talking to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your week.